We know Canadian cereals. Not those cereals, these cereals. The kind millions of people rely on for their business, for their livelihood, for every meal of the day. We're proud because Canadian farmers grow the highest quality wheat, barley, and oats in the world.
And we're not just saying that.
We have the data that proves it, because that's what the world needs. Information from experts who know precisely how to turn this into this, and this, and this. It's why we nurture relationships before the seed is even planted. Because when we succeed, Canadian farmers succeed. So do developers, processors, customers, and exporters in over 80 countries all over the globe. So let's keep growing. The best in the world is only getting better.
Welcome. I'm Leif Carlson, Director of Market Intelligence and Trade Policy at Cereals Canada. Today I will be joined by two Canadian farmers to present an update on how the 2025 Canadian wheat crop is growing. We'll also be sharing an overview of Cereals Canada and how our organization can help you better understand the quality and functionality of Canadian wheat, barley, and oats. We'll also hear from Matilda Van Achelen, our Market and Trade Specialist at Cereals Canada. Matilda will provide a market update. If you have any questions about the information presented in this webinar or about the services provided by Cereals Canada, please send them to info@cerealscanada.ca. Someone from our team will reply within 5 business days. During the webinar today, there will be presentations on an overview of Cereals Canada, a crop progress report and outlook. And lastly, I will talk with two Canadian farmers, Western Canadian farmer Scott Jesperson, a Canada Western Red Spring wheat grower from Alberta, and Josh Borson, who grows Canada Eastern Soft Red Winter Wheat in Ontario. Josh and Scott will be showcasing their farm or operations. Following that, I get to learn more about Canadian farming in my discussions with them. I also want to update you about a Cereals Canada resource, the Growing Season Progress Report, that will keep you up to date on how the Canadian wheat crop is progressing through this year. If you are new to our organization, we are the National Not-for-Profit Industry Association representing the cereal grains value chain. We are dedicated to supporting the Canadian cereals value chain, including farmers, exporters, developers, processors, and our customers around the world, all with a focus on trade, science, and sustainability. We value relationships and work with our customers, governments, and stakeholders to provide timely, expert technical information and deliver a best-in-class customer experience, which you're going to hear about today. Welcome to our webinar. I'd like to start by taking a moment to talk about Cereals Canada and provide an overview of who we are and what we do. As I mentioned in my introduction, Cereals Canada represents the Canadian cereal grains value chain. And we want to work to be the #1 promoter of Canadian cereals. And to do this, we want to build relationships to communicate and ensure that our customers understand the value of Canadian cereals and how it can work for them to grow their business and help them succeed. Cereals Canada's membership includes companies that move across the value chain. It starts with the life science companies that produce products that Canadian farmers can use to increase their productivity. Our membership includes the farmers themselves, and Cereals Canada's member organizations include cereal grower groups from coast to coast in Canada. Our membership includes the grain export companies that collect grain in Canada and move it to its end use, whether it's in Canada, in North America, or overseas. And our membership includes users of Canadian cereals, companies that are taking our product and transforming them into food to feed the world. When looking at Canadian cereal sector, it's important to understand that in Canada, we're able to produce a lot more food than we need for our own domestic population. And this means that a large portion of the grain produced in Canada is going to be exported. For a crop like durum wheat, we export about 90% of what we produce. For non-durum wheat, 70%. And smaller amounts for oats and barley, where more is used domestically for feed in Canada. In Canada, the cereal sector is a major economic driver. A study produced by Global Data identified that in Canada, the cereal sector is responsible for almost $69 billion of economic activity each year and creates about 370,000 jobs. These jobs and economic impact involve the acts of growing the grain, moving it, and processing it in Canada. And the economic impact that we see is really driven by the fact that in Canada we have excellent farmers who can grow the grain that can be transformed and sold. And I'd like to highlight our grain farmers and show you a video about grain farming in Canada.
How can we describe grain farming in a country as big as Canada, where grain farms come in all shapes and sizes, from coast to coast, all across the country? What could all these farms possibly have in common? Well, it's the big things. Like how we take pride in growing the highest quality grains on the planet by leading with science-based decisions, the best crop management practices, and the latest technology, while maintaining the highest standards of safety. It's our passion for growing food sustainably. How we strive to grow more food while conserving soil and water. How we respect, protect, and navigate nature while staying resilient to all the challenges it brings. It's our drive to deliver good, nutritious food, the staples people rely on here and around the globe. Our work is supporting families, benefiting rural communities, driving the economy. Our values, our passion, our commitment, they're what make us who we are, and what makes Canadian grain the best in the world. This is grain farming in Canada.
Grain farmers are such an important part of Cereals Canada, and we get to talk to some today, but it's also important to know that our farmers are part of our trade team and will get to meet customers and attend our new crop missions to talk about how they grow grain in a sustainable way. At Cereals Canada, one of our main points of emphasis is market access and advocacy. For us to be successful in a market, we must have access to it. And to do this, we focus on working with our customers to and have them understand the value of Canadian grains and why it works in the market, in each market around the world. Cereals Canada's team is active in government relations in Canada, making sure that our farmers in our industry have the right tools and the right policies to be successful growing grain and getting that grain to market. Now more than ever, Cereals Canada is paying attention to global trade and looking to advocate for policies that allow food to get to where it's needed and to benefit the consumers of Canadian cereals. We're also taking information back from you, the customer, and sharing it with our growers in Canada with initiatives like Keep It Clean that lets farmers know about market conditions, and we can provide timely updates on any market risks and give these resources to our farmers to let them understand how their on-farm practices work, and so that Canadian cereals will always meet the standards of our domestic and export customers. As I've said many times, understanding our customers and making sure that Canadian cereals work for them is important, and our market support and development activities are a big part of this. Cereals Canada works with wheat and durum customers. For barley, we also are complemented by the Canada Malt Barley Technical Centre, which helps with malting. And with oats, Cereals Canada is growing our presence to help and understand oat processing. One of the big ways that we provide our support and development is through the programming and face-to-face interactions that we offer. We invite customers to visit our facilities in Canada to learn more about Canadian cereals and their functionality. As part of these visits, customers may get to see Canadian farming operations and understand how modern Canadian agriculture protects quality right from the field all the way through to export position. And our experts at Cereals Canada are going to go in markets to visit with our customers, work with their technical teams in their markets, and learn how Canadian cereals helps them make excellent food products. At Cereals Canada, we really want to support our global customers, and we want to make sure that flour mills around the world can choose Canadian wheat for its quality and consistency. Each year, following the growing season, our team works hard in conjunction with our value chain in Canada to create a new wheat crop report. And in this, we're going to be able to highlight the quality, tell the story about how the crop was grown, and let our customers understand the production and the milling quality of each Canadian crop. We're still a few months away from this, but it's an exciting time in spring in Canada as we move forward ever closer to harvest. Our technical experts at Cereals Canada are also continually working to understand more about the Canadian cereals and their place in cereal markets. And as part of that, our team are working on comparing Canadian quality with that of other origins. We're working with our research teams and communicating back and forth between customers and Canadian producers on what's important in cereals quality globally, and making sure that our team is on top of growing trends in cereal food products. When we talk about comparing Canadian quality with others, that includes comparing Canadian wheat with other origins and looking at how these wheats can be blended together in a way that that is relevant to how our customers are working. And we're doing all of these things in a way to grow Canadian demand. Beyond the programming that we offer at Cereals Canada, we also have other programs such as highlighting the habitat benefits that comes from Western Canadian winter wheat, talking about the nutrition attributes of Canadian wheat crops, and in general, making sure that the Canadian sustainability story is well communicated and clearly understood. We take a lot of pride at what we do at Cereals Canada and look forward to getting to speak with our customers and you, the audience, whenever we can. This is Cereals Canada. Now let's take a look at how the 2025 Canadian wheat crop is progressing across the Prairie provinces.
Thank you for the overview presentation, Leif. As Leif mentioned, I will tell you more about how the Canadian wheat crop is progressing. We will look at seeding and early development of spring wheat in Western Canada and winter wheat in Eastern Canada. Let's start with an overview of the growing regions for wheat in Canada. The gold areas on the map represent non-durum wheat, also known as common wheat, and the blue area represents durum wheat. In Canada, non-durum wheat is grown from coast to coast. Most of our spring wheat is grown in the 3 Prairie provinces: Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. This is primarily hard red spring wheat. Winter wheat is the main type of wheat grown in Eastern Canada, in Ontario, Quebec, and the Atlantic region. Southern Ontario is the largest production area for soft red winter wheat. While the area for common wheat stretches from coast to coast, the production of durum wheat is concentrated in southern Alberta and Saskatchewan. This map shows how important Western Canada is for the production of non-durum wheat. 34% is grown in Alberta, 38% in Saskatchewan, and 18% in Manitoba. This is mostly spring wheat. 10% of non-durum wheat is grown in Eastern Canada. This is mostly winter wheat. Nearly all of the durum wheat produced in Canada is grown in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Alberta produces 19% of Canadian durum, and 81% is grown in Saskatchewan. This is what the breakdown of wheat grown in Canada looked like last year. In 2024, about 3/4 of the wheat produced in Canada was spring wheat. Durum wheat represented 17% of the wheat production, and winter wheat accounted for 8% of the crop. In Western Canada, seeding of spring wheat and durum wheat happens in May and is typically complete by mid-June. The crop develops during the summer months, and harvest can start as early as mid-August. At this point, seeding of spring wheat is complete across the prairies. Seeding progressed at a faster than average pace because of warm, dry weather throughout most of the month of May. Prior to seeding, Western Canada experienced variable weather conditions this winter. Some areas received significantly higher than average precipitation, particularly in central Alberta near the Saskatchewan border. Other areas, particularly in southern Saskatchewan and western Manitoba, received lower than average precipitation. Since the start of the growing season, dry conditions have emerged across the prairies, most notably along the northern edge of the growing area. In Canada, the vast majority of wheat is grown without irrigation and relies on rainfall. Thanks to improvements in crop genetics and agricultural practices, even smaller amounts of rainfall received at the right times can set the crop up for success. June and July are important months for crop development, and many producers are hoping for timely rains. At Cereals Canada, we will be watching the weather closely in the weeks ahead. In the last 2 weeks, we have received some beneficial rainfall across the prairies. We are hoping for this to continue over the next month. Now let's shift our attention to the growing areas for winter wheat in Eastern Canada. Winter wheat is typically planted in the early fall. The crop becomes established during the fall and then goes into dormancy during the winter months. The crop comes out of dormancy in the spring, and grows and matures between April and June. Most of the harvest typically takes place in July. Since the beginning of the growing season for winter wheat, most of the eastern growing region has experienced precipitation that was average or close to average. Some regions experience drier conditions, especially the area to the southwest of Toronto and the area around Montreal. Overall, soil moisture looks good in eastern Canada. Most areas have received the rain that the crop needs to fill and mature before harvest. Overall, the crop is in good condition. So far, we have seen that seeding of spring wheat and durum wheat is complete in Western Canada, and that the winter wheat crop is developing well in Eastern Canada. Now let's look at what we know about the seeded area for wheat. In March of this year, Statistics Canada, our national statistics agency, released a forecast of this year's seeded area by crop. Wheat remains the largest field crop grown in Canada. The total seeded area for non-durum wheat and durum wheat combined is forecast at 11.1 million hectares. This year, Statistics Canada is forecasting that the area seeded to non-durum wheat will reach over 8.5 million hectares, which would be a 3% increase compared to last year. The area seeded to durum wheat is expected to stay flat at 2.6 million hectares. We also have an early forecast for this year's wheat production. This forecast was developed by Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, which is our National Department of Agriculture. The forecast is based on the expectations for seeded area that we saw in the last slide. Based on the forecast for seeded area, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada expects a slight decrease in wheat production this year, if yields are in line with long-term trends. Production of non-durum wheat is expected to be slightly higher than last year at 29.3 million tons, thanks to an increase in seeded area. Assuming a return to trend yields, durum production is expected to decrease by 8% to 5.4 million tons, despite a similar seeded area. This would bring total wheat production to 34.7 million tons. With seeding complete across Western Canada, we have entered the key stages of crop development. Over the next few months, we will be keeping a close eye on the weather and the quality of the spring wheat crop. We want you to have the most up-to-date information as well. From now until the end of harvest, you can go to our Cereals Canada website to follow along with our growing season progress report. Every other week during the growing season, we publish a summary of how the spring wheat crop is progressing across the prairies. We work with the provincial governments of Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta to gather the latest information on seeding progress, crop condition ratings, soil moisture, weather conditions, and eventually harvest progress. We encourage you to follow along with us in the next few months to track the development of the crop. Thank you for your attention, and back to you, Leif.
Thank you very much for providing us with that information, Matilda.
A lot goes into growing the best for the world. When it comes to Canadian wheat, it starts with a commitment to quality, latest technology, and generations of know-how. Here in the Canadian West, dedicated farmers throughout Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba sustainably grow the pride of the prairies: Canada Western Red Spring and Canada Prairie Spring Red. It begins with choosing the best disease-resistant seed, and then bringing science and experience to every stage of growth. This helps to ensure Canada's crop meets the world's expectations for quality and consistency year after year. Communicating that quality to the world is the job of the Cereals Canada experts who will mill, analyze,
bake, and assess the wheat at every harvest and through the year. Canada Western Red Spring, or CWRS, is a sought-after hard wheat with high protein content and high protein quality, making it an excellent choice for various end products including high-volume pan breads, hearth breads, and noodles. Known around the world as a reliable improver wheat, CWRS can be milled with lower quality wheats to improve the quality of flour and enhance the characteristics of baked goods. Canada Prairie Spring Red, or CPSR, has a high milling yield and bright white flour. Its medium soft kernel makes it ideal for pan breads, flatbreads, crackers, and noodles. Grown throughout the West, Canada Western Red Spring is Canada's largest wheat class, accounting for 80% of Canada's wheat exports. For generations, farming families across the prairies have proudly grown their best for the world. Canada Western Red Spring and Canada Prairie Spring Red. You can see and taste the quality in every grain.
As the #1 promoter of Canadian cereals, we are experts when it comes to understanding Canadian wheat and how to support our domestic and global customers. But Cereals Canada has the opportunity to work with farmers across Canada who themselves are working hard to uphold our reputation for consistent, high-quality cereal grains. Today, we're joined by Josh Borson and Scott Jesperson, who grow wheat in Ontario and Alberta. They're here to share some information on their operations and to give us some insight into the similarities and differences between farming in Eastern Canada and Western Canada. It's my pleasure to welcome Josh and Scott to this webinar. Hey guys, I'll start with you, Scott. In what part of Western Canada do you farm, and how long have you been farming?
We farm 20 minutes west of Edmonton in Alberta, 3 hours east of the Rocky Mountains. We farm in a town called Spruce Grove, Stony Plain area. Our farm has been in our family for well over 100 years. I'm fourth generation, and my oldest son now is taking over, and he's fifth generation. So it's been a family farm right from the day that we started. So
That's incredible. It's good to see that that consistency of having one farm in a family so long. In west of Edmonton, there, what sort of crops are you growing, Scott?
we normally grow canola, peas, oats, couple different varieties of hard red spring wheat, and some barley.
In your part of Alberta, are there attributes of the soil or climate that guide you towards those crops?
Yeah, we farm kind of in a dark gray soil zone, a little bit of clay and sand. So we have some really good organic matter. Our soil can hold water, so we're pretty blessed to actually grow some really good crops here. And we have really good weather and climate. Yeah, it's a good region to grow, those.
Absolutely. We know about the quality that farmers in central and northern Alberta can bring. Let's bring Josh in. Josh, what part of Eastern Canada do you farm in, and what? Tell us about your farm.
Well, thanks, Leif. So I farm with my family in southwestern Ontario in the Great Lakes Basin. Actually, very low geographically. We're actually quite a bit south of where Scott would farm in Edmonton. People actually don't realize how far south some of Ontario actually reaches. We're actually in line with California and some of their geography in terms of climate. I farm with my family, my father and myself, and I have a few young children here on the farm with me. We've been on the farm where I am now for just shy of 50 years, and my family originally immigrated from Holland in the early 1950s. So our family is fairly new to Canada as far as that may go, but we've been farming the entire time that we've been here. And I'm sorry, Leif, but I've forgotten if you've asked another question, but
No, I just wanted you to talk about your farm. And it's great to hear about how the last 75 years you guys have been able to establish and grow your farm. But in southern Ontario there, what sort of crops do you grow, and how does the soil and climate influence that?
yeah, we're very fortunate here to live in the Great Lakes Basin, as I mentioned, and so we get a very temperate climate, and often actually we deal with sometimes too much water, so we use a lot of subsurface drainage to help us improve our crop production here. Where we farm actually used to be swampland, if you go back far enough, and through drainage over the centuries, it's actually turned into highly productive farmland. Most farmers in our region would grow a rotation of corn, soybeans, and winter wheat is the most typical rotation. It depends on the farms. In our case, we actually grow corn, soybeans, winter wheat, and edible beans. And for the first time this year, we're actually playing with winter canola in the rotation as well, looking to stretch our rotation out a little bit if we can get it to perform as well as we need to. There's going to be some significant learning with that as well.
I know that in Canada, our farmers have a lot of different options, and hearing you talk about winter canola, I think it's a good reminder that that's what innovation can look like on a farm is trying new things and see how it works in your climate. Josh, you and Scott are sort of in different parts of your growing season, because you're growing winter wheat in Ontario, planted in the fall, and it's probably you're starting to think about harvest, maybe even. How was the crop on your farm, Josh, and how did it come out of dormancy, and how's it looking?
Well, thanks, Leif. And yes, as you mentioned, we grow winter wheat, and so we planted that last September, and that's part of the reason why we grow edible beans is actually to be able to plant the winter wheat a little bit earlier into better conditions, better soil conditions. A lot of winter wheat in Ontario, and ours included, was planted quite early, earlier than we maybe would typically, and it went into winter looking quite good. For most of the province, it came out of dormancy, also looking quite good. Just based on our farm and our conditions where we are, we actually received a significant amount of snowfall, more snowfall than we've probably seen in at least close to 20 years, if not 30 years. And that did have some impacts on the winter wheat breaking dormancy. We had some areas that struggled to maintain their tillers and perform as well as we had hoped. But overall, the crop does still look pretty good, and especially across the province, it looks probably very good. It's one of the larger winter wheat crops that Ontario has planted, and it's our largest on our farm actually. There is a piece of ground that we farm that isn't well drained, and typically we have not planted winter wheat there in the past, and we took a chance on it this year. So we actually have probably winter wheat is our key crop this year in terms of actual acreage on our farm.
No, we've seen the higher winter wheat seeded area expectations in Canada, and it's good to see that that farmers had that opportunity to get that crop in, and we're hoping that it comes along well for you. Switching back to the west, Scott, you've probably finished your seeding not terribly long ago. For you and your farm, how do you make your seeding decisions? How do you choose the varieties that you grow, and how did seeding look for you this year?
Yeah, usually we start seeding probably the end of April. It takes about a month. We finished on about the 25th of May. Um, the crop looks good. It's come out of the ground good. We've had some really good moisture. Our seeding decisions are based on kind of a really strong crop rotation. So we always look at what crop we harvested the previous year, and we look at it on a field by field basis. Um, we don't necessarily seed all of the newest genetics, but we take, all the wheat varieties that are proven performers, based on yield, um, because yield, of course, determines profitability on our farm.
Is this the kind of thing where you have advisors that help you? Is the government telling you what to grow, or you get support from your association like Alberta Grains?
Yeah, we use a different number of sources. We have an agronomist that helps us, choose which crops to put in which fields based on all of our soil tests that we do. Don't really look at what the government does. That's kind of an unknown variable. Mostly we manage that with our marketing decisions. That's where we notice, sometimes if there's tariffs. But we stick to a pretty solid marketing plan to actually take the risk out of what the government does. Yeah, I think it's based on crop rotation and the performance of the crop from the previous year. That's how we choose which crops we're going to seed in the following year.
But over the past number of months, we've seen a lot of news articles that are talking about uncertainty in trade and what may be happening in different markets. Is that something that you guys are factoring into your seeding plans, or is it much more of a long-term game in terms of your rotation and marketing planning?
Yeah, bottom line is it's a long-term gain, right? So, we've kind of developed a strong strategy that we use in seeding our crops, but mostly the weather is the thing that we have to kind of manage, more than the government. But yeah.
Josh, would you say the same thing for yourself in your operation?
Um, Probably to an extent. I would say in Ontario, we don't generally look at the weather impact so much on our rotation. It's generally consistent. Of course, it varies year to year and week to week, of course, like the weather does, but it's hard to factor that into a cropping plan. And to your question about geopolitical impacts, the markets and tariffs and things like that, because a lot of what we do stretches over a long period of time, especially in the case of winter wheat, where we would plant it in September and harvest in, say, August, is almost a year from, or it is a year probably from seeding intention to harvest. It would be very difficult to try and predict what the markets may do and what the impacts would be long term. And it would probably be foolish, realistically, in our case, to attempt to predict what would happen. It's better to just follow a marketing plan, as Scott said. Try and take the highs that as they come, and make sure that we understand our cost of production and manage our business that way, rather than try and predict the markets or predict uncertainty in the world.
Right, sort of control what you can control and achieve that. Yeah, well, no, that's important, and with the investment that I think that farmers have made in Canada and their operations, with the genetics that we have access to, hopefully that's going to increase our resilience and therefore our competitiveness, regardless of what the news of the day is. And that's really maybe to close off our conversation. That's I want to end by looking forward. Josh, what do you need? What do you want to see for the next month to what does your crop need to see to finish it off in the best way this year?
Well, I forgot to touch on it earlier. At this time of recording, we're approaching the grain fill period, or we're well into the grain fill period on our wheat. So ideally, we would like to have temperate or moderate temperatures and a good amount of moisture to help that process along. I did see in the short-term forecast that we're going to get actually quite hot here. So we'll see how that goes. But generally speaking, looking for moderate temperatures for the next couple weeks, and then we would like it to remain dry into harvest ideally. Last year we dealt with a significant amount of moisture at harvest and challenges, and we have tools available to us to deal with that situation as well. In southern Ontario, just because of our climate, we tend to dry a lot of our grain out of the field, so we would harvest it at a higher moisture than trade, and we would dry it down and condition that grain to maintain high quality for our customers. Realistically, if we have poor quality out of the field, then they have poor milling quality, and that doesn't work for anyone. So we have the tools at our disposal to do the best job we can, given what Mother Nature throws at us, but we hope for the best always.
Oh, absolutely. And, thanks for mentioning that you're thinking of customer needs, because that is how we succeed in Canada, by delivering for them too. Scott, you've got a bit of a longer road before harvest. Tell me what the ideal weather conditions look like for your farm over the next 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, the past couple weeks we've been hit with a good amount of moisture. It's been raining. In fact, it's raining right now as I look out the window as I do this webinar. We could use some heat. We have excellent soil moisture right now. We were fairly dry about a month ago, coming right out of seeding. The crop, it got a good start, got out of the ground, and then it was a little bit dry. So we were really looking forward to having some moisture. Crops, especially the wheat crop, is just starting into the flag leaf. So, it's building yield right now. We have pretty much ideal conditions. We're looking for some heat. As Josh said too, we have the tools to actually have high quality wheat. I think most people in our area have a grain dryer, so it allows us to take the wheat off at the perfect time and dry it down, and probably increases the quality of the wheat. We also hope for the best. The weather is sort of the number one factor that we're going to have. And it usually is the number one thing that farmers in Western Canada have to contend with, is the weather. So yeah, we're looking really good right now. We look like our crops in Western Canada are going to be really good. And yeah, all the best to everybody.
Well, I agree with all that, and thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy farming operations to talk with myself and with the audience for this webinar. Both Scott and Josh will be meeting customers and getting to travel into markets in November and December of this year, when Cereals Canada will be traveling for the new crop trade and technical missions. And between now and then, after the crop is harvested, we'll be doing the analysis work and sharing the 2025 new crop report. Once again, I'd like to thank Scott Jesperson and Josh Borson for joining us today. And we wish you a really great growing season and an excellent harvest. Now let's hear from Matilda about the growing season progress report.
Hi, my name is Matilda van Achelen, and I'm the Market and Trade Specialist at Cereals Canada. In just a few months, the spring wheat in this field will be mature and ready for harvest. Not too long after, it will start making its way to mills and bakeries around the world. At Cereals Canada, we work with the provincial governments of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba to gather information on how the spring wheat crop is progressing, and we share this information on our website. Every other week throughout the growing season, from the beginning of seeding throughout to the end of harvest, we publish our growing season progress reports. This report is a snapshot of how the spring wheat crop is progressing across Western Canada. It also contains summaries of the provincial growing conditions, such as weather conditions, soil moisture levels, and growth stages. We would like to invite you to follow along as we keep a close eye on the development of the crop over the next few months. You can visit our growing season progress report at cerealscanada.ca.
Thanks once again for joining us for the 2025 Canadian growing season update. We look forward to an excellent growing season and a high-quality harvest.